24. Lucky Buck. "See, this is the thing," Allison said when he arrived in Berkeley at close to 11. "There's nothing to talk about," Chris said. "I'm not even going to say I'm sorry because it won't matter." "Did you bring your guitar at least?" "I did, and that's part of what slowed me down. I was somewhere else and had to go back and get it." "I can see how that would slow a person down by 6 hours, Monica said. She had joined Allison on the front porch and had a suitcase next to her. "You've got to be kidding me," Chris said. "I wasn't planning on it originally," Monica said, "but with all this extra time this morning to think it over, a road trip could be fun." "It won't be. Whatever. Whoever's in the car in the next 30 seconds, I'm going." A half hour up Highway 80, he realized he was starving and pulled off at a truck stop in Fairfield. Allison said, "That wasn't the longest first leg of a trip, but I like stopping places." A half hour later, Chris said, "I feel better now, finally getting something in my stomach." The towns along here, Vallejo, Fairfield, Vacaville, they used to be like old middle America. You'd hear pieces of Oklahoma accents as remnants of the Dust Bowl migration. Now it's gangs and OxyContin. When they were past Sacramento into the foothills of the Sierras, he said, "Something I neglected to ask you last time. What do you both do that you can take off without worrying about it?" "Temp work," Monica said. "Not a bad idea, actually," Chris said. "That'd pay the bills?" "Usually," Allison said, "and Henry understands our situation, so if we're short, he works with us." "Good old Henry," Chris said. It was starting to get dark past Reno, and he asked if anyone could drive a stick. Monica said they couldn't, and what was the problem? He was doing just fine. The two of them were sprawled out in the back seat, half asleep. "That's it," he said when they got to Winnemucca. "Unfortunately." They checked into the Frontier 8 motel a couple blocks off the main drag. "You guys get the better room," he said. "2 beds, no doubt all kinds of amenities." "Thank you for getting 2 rooms," Allison said. "You don't have to." "Oh, yes, I do," Chris said. "Here's a few bucks for some dinner. Have fun and don't bother me until the morning." "Meaning 5 a.m., Monica said, sharp. Chris got cleaned up and walked over to the strip of casinos they had seen coming off the interstate. He picked Stan's Lucky Buck and sat down at the lounge bar. A guy was up front on a little riser, playing guitar and singing Toby Keith with synthesized backup. It was a nice place. It had a homegrown feel to it. Very different than the unpleasant corporate atmosphere that had taken over Vegas and most of Reno, too. The cocktail waitresses were jammed into shiny blue and gold outfits, and after a few minutes of watching them, Chris asked the bartender, a friendly young guy wearing a long-sleeved Western shirt, "There are any of those legal ranches around here that you hear about in Nevada?" "You mean like the old Mustang?" the guy said. "Well, yeah." "Well, we got a few of those places in town. Pretty basic stuff, not really ranches anymore for the most part." "Is there one you recommend?" "Yeah, that'd be the semi-legal one, the Tumbleweed J. There you do have a ranch. It's about 6 miles east on Jungo Road, which is State 49. You just go out the main door, go up the corner, and hang a left at Burger King." "When you say semi-legal," Chris said, "I mean I wouldn't want to be breaking the law or anything." "Not a concern. They got technicalities with code and shit. Maybe once every couple of years they'll haul in a few of the girls and patrons, hold them for an hour. It's all for show." Anyone in particular there?" "Well, what are you, late 30s, early 40s? "Yeah." "I'd go with Sandra. She's lived a little bit, very compassionate lady." Chris thanked him for the tips, finished his beer, and headed out to try to find the place. It was definitely a ranch. There were barns and corrals, and you could smell the animals and feed. The parking area was crowded, and Chris remembered it was a Saturday night. There were 4 or 5 guys standing around in the entry parlor, and 2 of the working women were sitting on couches, one smoking and staring into space, the other wrapped up in her cell phone. An older woman in jeans and a starched white blouse appeared and said she was Daisy and could she help him. And Chris asked if Sandra was available. Sandy's here tonight, Daisy said, but she's booked up through her shift. You visited her before? No, I got a referral. Okay, let's see. I'm thinking Jeanette might be a good fit then. She's newer here, but she's one of our more mature girls like Sandy. Chris said that'd be fine, signed something, took care of the credit card, and Daisy walked him to Jeanette's room, which had an outside entrance. A movie with Robert De Niro was on with the sound off. Jeanette said, "How are you?" "Hard to say," Chris said. "I always anticipated this moment, but now that I'm here, it's an odd vibe." "Do you mean me?" "No, that part's fine. Just not sure I want to do anything about it." "Okay, fair enough. There's no need to announce anything should you change your mind." "Do you get there ever?" "You mean when I'm working?" she said. "Yeah. Not during the act. Occasionally from foreplay. Doesn't mean I don't enjoy it all, though." She took off her top, everything bounding forward. "I see," Chris said. "Well, maybe I can give it a go at that." When they were laying back, Jeanette said, "I'm really glad you relaxed your guard. It's just a sense, but I feel you're hiding from something. Or running." "I am wrestling with my midlife direction," he said, "which makes you perceptive." "You learn to size people up," she said. "If I can distract you for an hour, I've spread a tiny bit of goodness out into the world." They had lunch in Twin Falls and got into Pocatello before 3. A guy at the gas station mini-mart recommended a motel on 5th Street, so they went with it. Chris showered and took a little walk out the front door, and just up the block was the beginning of the Idaho State University campus, which he didn't expect, another college. A few blocks further, he passed a steakhouse that looked good, and he went back and rounded everybody up and took them there for dinner. "I'd highly recommend suspending the vegan act for tonight," he said. "If you insist, though, there's always the chef salad if they hold the hard-boiled egg and ham." To his surprise, Allison and Monica ordered house specials with 14-ounce ribeyes. "Something about being in this environment," Allison said. "The meat fits." "This is really good, Chris," Monica said. "I'm glad I tagged along." "Well, I do give you credit in one department," he said. "You're good travelers. Not much whining or complaining so far. Even last night, a little town in the middle of the desert, you were upbeat." "I forgot to ask, what'd you do last night?" Allison said. "I went to a brothel." "What?" Monica said. "Wow, what was that like?" Allison said. "It was pretty much the stereotype you would expect." Monica said, "Meaning what? Come on, you have to tell us about it." "Well, everything was handled pretty professionally. You check in and they match you and farm you out." "And were the women attractive?" Allison said. "I didn't see many of them, but mine was. She was a few pounds overweight, but I tend to like that." "And?" Monica said. "Well, there's a mind-body connection, obviously. It took me a while to relax my guard," was the way she put it. "And did she orgasm?" Allison said. "Jesus, not so loud." "No." Monica said, "Can we go with you next time? Just to take a look?" "On the way back, you want, I'll drop you off. But I'll wait in the parking lot." Monday morning, Chris drove around to get the lay of Pocatello. There were 8 or 9 health clubs, but the gym that Dad was hopefully still involved with was Boardwalk Fit on Yellowstone Avenue. He found the place and went in. A tan guy in a polo shirt was sitting behind an oval counter, and Chris asked, Was there a brochure or something? And the guy said, by all means, right here. He didn't see Thad Simmons' name, but he noticed there were 3 locations of Boardwalk Fit with clubs in the works for Twin Falls and Boise. Is this the original facility? Chris asked the polo shirt guy. Yes, sir, he said, since 2004. So you're doing well then, expanding. The guy nodded. We like to think we've carved a significant niche in the industry. We still have them, of course, but we've de-emphasized the machines and weights. We're known for heavy-duty classes and personal training, boot camp style. It's all about the core now. You owned by a corporation then, or what? Chris said. That's one of the things we're most proud of. Our boss founded Boardwalk with 1 room, a treadmill, a bike, and a Nautilus machine. He manages hands-on, and he's not the type to sell out. You have to admire that, Chris said. You do. Great place to work. I'm just part-time, but even with me, they make you feel like you're part owner of the business. Really, Chris said. You have a 1-day thing you can sell me so I can try it out? On the house, the guy said. I just need your X right here, please. And Chris signed Jerry Smith, thanked the guy, and gave himself a tour. There wasn't much to the place. No basketball or racquetball or pool. Mainly just workout areas with minimal equipment where trainers could yell at you as you developed your core. There was 1 class in progress, and it looked grim. At the end of the hall past the men's locker room was an office with manager on the door. Chris opened it. A man looked up from his desk, frowning, taking off his half-frame reading glasses. There were several award-type plaques on the walls and a nameplate on the desk that read, Thad Simmons. Oops, Chris said. I guess this isn't where I inquire about membership. That's all up front, Thad said, and he put his glasses back on. Allison and Monica had discovered a microbrewery pub near the railroad tracks, and they insisted Chris go with them for a little happy hour. Did you know that Pocatello once had the largest rail yard west of the Mississippi River? Monica said. We found that out today. Chris said I didn't, but I have to admit this black stout is pretty dang good. A touch of sweetness to it. You can't get anything like this at Weatherby's. Is Weatherby's where you took me? Allison said. Yeah. How's your friend? She said. Shep, the bartender? No, the one who needed to see you that night in your lobby, in the short skirt. Joyce. Oh, she's okay. I haven't caught up with her in a while. She was into you, though. That was obvious. She was? Monica said. Oh, yes, seriously. Chris, have you ever been married? Once, when I was about your age. What are you, 21, 22? Gosh, you really think we're that young? Monica said. We're both 24. Okay, then, sorry. Bottom line, it went south fast. But do you still keep in touch? Allison said. No, I wouldn't even recognize her. So who are you closest to in the world? Man, you're grilling me, Chris said. You mean if I was in a big jam, who would I turn to? Yes, who? No one particularly jumps out, to be honest. This is what I'm driving at, Allison said. I'm sorry if I'm overstepping. Don't worry about it. I mean, I'm having trouble getting why you would need to visit a brothel, she said, even though it is interesting to hear about. Let me shift gears on you for a minute, he said. If I'm trying to find someone and I've got a name, Jeff Jones, and I want to make sure it's not the wrong Jeff Jones, what do I do? Are they a professional? Monica said. Probably be considered one, yeah. Did you try LinkedIn yet? No. It's a giant business networking site. People list their past work experience, that sort of thing. You might be able to narrow it down. We're on there, Allison said. It helps in the temp world, Monica said. Okay, thanks, Chris said, and he ordered another stout and excused himself. When he came back, he said, I see they have open mics in this place. There's a flyer posted outside the men's room. Gee, What night? Allison said. Thursdays and Saturdays, if I got it right. Al, that's perfect, Monica said. This time Chris can even be there. Will we still be here Thursday? Allison said. We should, yeah, Chris said, trying to picture things. Probably not much beyond that, though. What exactly do you have to do here anyway? Monica said. A business thing I've been putting off, he said. Well, that's certainly specific. See, now that's it again, Chris, Allison said. You're holding too much back, and it's affecting your quality of life. On Tuesday, Chris sat down at a computer in the University Student Union and tried Thad Simmons on LinkedIn. There were a few results, but one photo looked distinctly like the Thad he had walked in on, so he clicked that guy. It listed him as President of Broadway Fit LLC, and sure enough, boom, under experience, it said Senior Account Manager, Eastern Sports Clubs, Bedford, New York, 1993 to 95. It wasn't clear how he'd ended up in this unlikely place, but he had. Chris was 21 when Thad raped Bonnie. She was 24. According to Bonnie, Thad was obsessed with her and had professed his love. She rejected him repeatedly until he took matters into his own hands that night when everyone else had cleared out of the office. A few employees told the police that the two had been friendly, and it quickly turned into a she said, he said case of rough sex. Even though Bonnie had multiple bruises and went to the emergency room, and even though it came out 2 previous women had filed complaints against Thad, the young female DA handling it told Bonnie she didn't think she could convince a jury. Chris couldn't find a home address for Thad, so he picked up a takeout lunch, drove to Broadway Fit, and sat in the parking lot. Club members came and left over the next couple hours, and there was a black late-model Toyota Highlander in the rear of the parking lot that hadn't moved, and time would tell if it was Thad's. Meanwhile, he called Brigitte. How have you been? She said. Fine, Chris said, but I'm more concerned about you. How nice of you to inquire. Things are good, actually. Really? Yes, don't ask me why, but Steve has been treating me famously. It's almost as though he's discovered a rejuvenated passion for our marriage. Geez, that's amazing. I'm trying to process that one. I am as well. All I know is he's been a pleasure to be around. So evidently a light bulb went on or something. Perhaps. Okay, well, good luck with it then. I appreciate your calling, Chris. You must know you've been quite beneficial to both Steve and myself. It was nearly 3:30 and he didn't want to, but he figured he should call Joyce. You answered, he said. That mean you're out on bail? Joyce said, let's can the humor if you don't mind. Where are you? I was in the city on Sunday and stopped over a few times, not to mention texted you. I'm in the vicinity of Las Vegas. Listen, what else is going on? I have to get off in a second. Well, Bruce and I are history for one thing. Whoa. He's been very unpleasant recently, and I finally put my foot down. I don't know, maybe him doing the Donnie thing is not that far-fetched. Hard to argue with the possibility, Chris said. Oh, and did you see that on the news? About the guy and the dog? No, what? My God, the worst story. A man on Clement Street gets into it with another driver over a parking space. It escalates, and he grabs the other driver's little dog off the front seat and flings it into traffic. Oh, no. The poor thing was still barely alive but died on the way to the vet. Christ's sakes. Anyhow, sorry to put a damper on your Las Vegas fun. You be good, she said. Yeah, you too, he said. It had almost reached the torture stage when Thad came strutting out the door of the gym at 4:45 and got into the black Highlander. He turned right, continued a couple miles up Yellowstone past the Pine Ridge Mall, and the 86 interchange and made a couple of moves that took him to the Bannock County Swim and Racket Club, where it sure looked like he wasn't going to be in any rush. Chris called Allison. "Don't wait around for me to eat or anything," he said. "I have to speak to someone who keeps postponing it. It's going to be a problem." "Not a problem," she said. "It's been a good day. I spent some time working on my songs. I can't wait to play them for you." "So you're going to do the open mic then?" "I think," she said. "It's a little intimidating not being from around here. Oh, and Monica met someone." "Male or female?" "A guy. He's a graduate student at the college." "Good for her then." "The thing is," Allison said, "he may spend the night, in which case, would you mind if I came into your room?" "I do mind," he lied, "but I guess if there's no alternative." "Okay, let's see how it plays out. Monica will appreciate you being understanding." Thad emerged from the Bannock Swim and Racket Club after nearly 2 hours, which was infuriating. The guy didn't even look fit. How could he justify all that time? Chris followed Thad as he jumped onto I-15, exited at the southern edge of town, passed the zoo and golf course, crossed the tracks on Cheyenne Avenue, and continued into the foothills until finally a garage door opened at a house on Johnny Creek Drive, and Thad disappeared into it. Now what? There was an area at the end of the road where it looked like people parked cars and maybe let dogs run around the hillside, so Chris waited there for a while but didn't see one dog walker, much less Thad. Could you just ring the bell and shoot the guy when he answered? He drove back past the house. The neighbors on Thad's side of the road shouldn't be a problem since everybody's property seemed to be a couple acres and they couldn't see each other's front doors. The house across from Thad did have a view of things, though. He'd have to make sure nobody was home there first, if this was the right way to handle it. He went back to the brew pub and had another one of those black stouts. Could you shoot him in the manager's office when the polo shirt guy was busy taking a shit or something? Or could you get to him in a parking lot someplace, maybe when he was loading his groceries after dark? Could you get a day pass to the Bannock Club and drown him in the pool there? No, obviously. Chris could see this wasn't going to be easy. He'd have to follow the guy's routine carefully and hope for an opening and then not dilly-dally. It was quiet at the motel with no sign of the girls. The room had basic cable, not the full shebang that everyone was used to now, and it was amazing that with 60 channels there was nothing to watch. One station was 24-hour LDS church stuff, and the Mormon Tabernacle Choir was singing out of a huge temple in Salt Lake City. It was different, at least, so he left it on. Allison knocked on the door close to midnight. "Chris, I'm not sure I'm going to need to leave the room. Are you still good with it, though, if I do?" "I can deal with it, but you're not sure because..." "Monica may not be that into her friend, Tim." "That's surprising. She should know all about him by now," Chris said. "Either way, can we have breakfast?" "I can probably fit it in," he said. Voices and laughter and banging around woke him up, coming from their room. His first thought was, this place is half empty. Why was I stupid enough to get 2 rooms next to each other? The activity continued unabated for a couple hours until he couldn't take it anymore, and he bundled up and went for a walk. It was 5:30 in the morning. A block into it, he decided, why not walk up to Thad's? Maybe something would present itself. It was further than he thought, especially had you had to wind around in the hills after you crossed the railroad tracks, and it was after 7 when he got there, though it did feel good to be getting some exercise in the crisp mountain air. Lights were on in Thad's kitchen, and Chris could see him at the counter. He walked to the end of the road to the parking area, and when he got back, Thad's lights were off and the house seemed quiet. It appeared to be garbage day. Most of the neighbors had cans and recycling containers out near the road, but a few didn't, including Thad. Chris heard a garbage truck nearby and followed the sound. What he deduced pretty quickly was some of the residents went with the deluxe service, where the sanitation guys had to go up the driveway and get the cans out of the backyard or garage. He went back to Thad's, walked around the side of the garage, and sure enough, there was a keypad mounted inconspicuously in the back corner above the hose spigot. During that year he'd spent in Teaneck, New Jersey, his apartment complex installed a gate, and tenants were always forgetting the code. The cops came by a couple times, and one of them told him because of safety regulations, you could often get in those things by punching in 911 or 1234. This was different, of course, a private setup, but Chris figured what the heck and picked up a twig out of Thad's yard, tried 911 with it and nothing happened, so he tried 1234, and there was the hum of the garage door in action, and he walked down the driveway, took one look back to make sure, and began the long trek back to the motel. 25. Road maps. They were at Inez's Country Kitchen, the noontime crowd filtering in, and Allison and Monica were having bacon and eggs with sides of potatoes. And also sides of pancakes. All that activity, apparently, Chris said, sipping his coffee. It took it out of you. Monica said, not right now, Chris, okay? We're not feeling that great. At times, he said, it sounded like a couple battleships pitching around on the high seas. Do you think anyone else noticed, or just me? No one said anything. The good thing, though, he said, was it got me out early. You can't beat going for a walk when it's 10 degrees and dark. You get perspective. Allison put her fork down. I'm sorry that it played out differently than we thought, she said. Monica said, Tim had a friend, Matt. Good then. You resolved the uneven relationship with Tim, Chris said. No, I got together with Matt. Tim and Allison hooked up. Ah, Chris said. But Chris, Allison said, we're going to have to go take a nap. After that, can you help me with the songs? I guess if I have to. But one thing is you have to thin out the lyrics. You're trying to do too much. By Thursday, he had Dad's basic routine down, and he loaded the checkpoint and transferred it from the spare tire compartment to the glove box and covered it with a bunch of road maps. He had gone over to Hayward to buy bullets at a place Ray told him about, and he parked a few blocks away and paid cash, probably overly paranoid about the whole thing, but glad now he didn't have to screw around with finding ammunition out here. He stopped off at City Hall and checked the land records for Thad's property. A Marion Simmons was on title with Thad, but there hadn't been any sign of her at the house. Hopefully they were separated and she was out of the picture, not just away for a couple days. The best move, which wasn't saying much, did seem to be to get in the garage and shoot the prick when he came home at night, maybe have him turn on the engine first to muffle the sound. Still, it was prudent to be ready if a better opportunity was out there. He followed Thad again from Broadway Fit to the country club and realized even if he could pull it off, there wouldn't be enough time tonight because of the damn open mic. If he missed this one, they'd kill him for sure. There was a Texas-style rib place he'd heard about on the east side of town, so he went there for dinner. It was around 7:30 when he finished, and since he had some time now, he took a drive. As he headed east, there were less houses and more farms, and the last bit of sunset reflected off the fences. He came to a railroad crossing and sat there waiting for a freight train to clear, and a pickup truck pulled in behind him and switched on its high-beam lights. When the train passed, Chris started slowly, watching his rearview mirror. The guy in the pickup honked at him and then swung onto the right shoulder as he passed, Chris, he stuck his head out the window, spit in the direction of the car, and gave him the finger. Then he started laughing and sped by. The guy was wearing a camouflage John Deere cap and had long, stringy hair. He looked to be in his 20s. Chris accelerated until he caught up to the truck and flicked on his own high beams. He followed the pickup for a couple miles until the guy made an abrupt left turn into what looked like an equipment yard. Chris kept going straight and tried to calm down. There had been no reason to get into that. The jerk didn't like his California plates or whatever. So what? Bright lights poured into his car again, and the pickup was back behind him, riding him tight. They continued driving for what seemed like several miles. It was dark, and there were no signs of people or even lights in the distance. It felt like they were climbing slightly. Chris slowed down and came to a stop, hoping the truck would move on, but the guy stopped and waited, his front grill just about on Chris's bumper. Chris started up again, desperately looking now for anywhere to turn off and hopefully end this nightmare. Finally, there was a sign with an arrow to the right, and he followed it. It was a small dirt pull-out area with power poles and big electrical boxes and a utility company sign. The truck parked parallel to him, and the guy got out. "Ain't you a bastard, then?" the John Deere guy said, coming toward him, smiling. "Gonna teach you something now." Chris opened his door, stood up, and shot the guy in the chest. The guy's hat flew off, and he wobbled and went down, clutching at himself, moaning. Chris watched him for a minute, figured he'd better shoot him in the head, too, to be safe. So he moved closer and squinted and aimed for the middle of the forehead. He came in a little off to the side, but the guy wasn't moving anymore, and you couldn't make out the left side of his face, so he figured that was good enough. There wasn't much room, and the way the guy was situated, Chris had to make several maneuvers to avoid running over him, which would have been fine, except it might put the guy on his car somewhere. So he took his time and finally got the fuck out of there without contacting anything. One good thing, the guy had turned off his engine and lights. He followed the road back as best he could. At one point it felt like he made a wrong turn, but he went with it, pretty sure he was northeast of Pocatello and at least traveling south. Eventually, he started to see lights way off to the right, and he stayed with them to the outskirts of town. He went to the motel and took a shower, only then noticing that his hands were shaking, and lay down. He bolted up with a start, remembering Allison and Monica were at the brew pub. It was 9:35, and he tore over there. They ignored him when he walked in. There was a list of that night's performers on a chalkboard near the little stage, and Allison was number 3 and had already gone. There were 7 musicians signed up, and number 5 was up there now, a man playing piano singing Billy Joel. Chris found the person in charge and was able to get on the list as number 8. He approached Allison. "I have my guitar in the trunk," he said, "so I thought I'd join in the fun." "Whatever," she said. "What I'm going to do," he said, "I'll play a song, and then you come up there with me, okay? What do you have that works as a duet?" "Yeah, right," she said. Monica said, "Every time we start saying what a nice guy you are, you pull this. There's something deep-rooted, pathologically wrong with you, Chris." "I'm getting the guitar," he said. "I haven't done this in a long time." A woman played the accordion next and sang along. It sort of worked. A couple of her songs were in French. Number 7 was a folk singer, a young kid trying to be Phil Oakes out of Greenwich Village in the 60s. He had passion but was slightly off-key. Chris tuned up, cleared his throat, and announced here was one about Florida, the one time he visited there, called "Look Around Town." He forgot some of the words and had to hum a few lines, but the audience seemed to like it, and it was a pretty full house. That was one thing he noticed about places like Pocatello. When there was an event, people didn't overthink what else they could be doing instead. They showed up and paid attention and stayed until it was over. I have a couple more I'm going to need help with, Chris said. So I'm going to bring Allison Burdett up, staring right at her. There was a smattering of applause, and Allison made her way to the stage, clearly not in the mood. He told her, we'll just wing this. We'll do 2 more of mine, you fill in the harmonies whenever you think, and then we'll do one of yours, your best song. I already played it, she said. So we'll do a different one, Jesus. The first had a lazy Merle Haggard feel titled Straight Ahead 2 Times, and the second was an upbeat number his band played 20 years ago called Working Jupiter. He could feel Allison getting into it, inserting herself just right, and he tried to enjoy the moment, even though he kept flashing on the John Deere guy. He asked her which song she'd picked out for the grand finale, and she said the third one from that time in his apartment, which she was calling I'm in Love with Your Shadow. She sang it well. She'd cleaned up the lyrics and strengthened the bridge, and it flowed. The part about the garden, though, he said back at the table, you'll see it through its time of toil. Yes, I added that line. No, Chris said, but overall, you weren't bad. Al, they loved you, Monica said. That last song got the biggest ovation of the night. The other thing, I'm thinking we'll leave tomorrow, Chris said. Might as well be on the road bright and early. Already? Allison said, we're just getting used to it here. And the bartender asked me if I'll be at the open mic on Saturday. I'm comfortable here as well, said Monica. We spent the day in Old Town. There's a lot we haven't seen yet. Either of you want to screw around with the bartender, he said. Better start on that now. We're out of here at 5 a.m. sharp. You're a real party pooper. You know that? Allison said. 26. Readjustment. Chris slept badly, twitching awake every few minutes. Around 1, he phoned Bethany. Hey, Chris, she said, I haven't heard your voice in a while. Interesting of you to pick now. That was fun, he said, down in L.A. It was. I still think about it. But you sound strange. Your ex-husband, any updates with that? No. But tell me honestly, Chris, are you still feeling fine? A-okay. And you're back safe and sound from your trip, she said. Nah, still trying to accomplish a few things. What I'm thinking you do? Tell Kyle to shove it up his ass. No response. Anyway, Chris said, how's your squash? Chris, I'm going back to bed. Nice of you to call. She hung up. They were 2.5 hours below Pocatello on Interstate 15, approaching Salt Lake City. Chris said, okay, now we need a meeting of the minds. We go right, we end up back in Berkeley tonight. We go straight, we visit Phoenix. Monica was scrunched up in the passenger seat against the window, with Allison laid out in back, dead to the world. Monica opened a slit of an eye, gave him a whatever hand signal, and readjusted herself and went back to sleep. How could he have screwed up Dad like that? It was almost there, only a matter of time before he got it right. But now they had to hightail it out of town because he wasted the whole trip on some idiot. He came up on the US 80 interchange, got in the right lane, thought about it, and kept going straight. It was 10 hours from Salt Lake to Phoenix. Might as well call Floyd and let him know. Allison and Monica finally woke up when he stopped for gas near Blank, Nevada. Where are we? Allison said. On the way to see my brother. We got another 6 hours left. You've been missing the scenery. What's he like? Monica said. Floyd is 7 years younger than me, so it's hard to say. He's generous, has a good heart, that much I know. But you're close, right? Allison said. Not really. I ignored him growing up, which I regret. Well, what does he look like? She said. Jesus, you're not planning to mess with my kid brother now, are you? I wasn't thinking that. Monica said she might be. I know, Al, that's where she's going with her questions. Anyway, this should be fun. I've never been to the Southwest. Don't hold your breath, Chris said. Floyd lived in a tract house in Mesa. Not only did the houses look the same, but the neighborhoods got you mixed up too. The people next door to Floyd had a giant Winnebago in the driveway with a flag flying off it, so Chris figured Floyd could use that as a landmark to find his house. The inside smelled like fresh paint. I'm drawing a blank on when you were down here last, Floyd said. Pretty sure, though, I was still in that first condo. Big spread with a couple pools, bikinis walking around the whole 9 yards, Chris said. That's right, downtown. Then I had another one in Tempe. I got a sweet deal on this place, though. You know, the housing downturn. No pool, but I joined a club to cool off and shit. It works. They were having cocktails at the little kitchen table. Allison said, "You don't look that much like Chris, but you kind of talk the same." Floyd said, "Not sure I want to hear, but how did you all get together for this adventure?" "I met Chris at a coffee place," Allison said. "He was having a difficult day, and I asked him if he wanted to go do something." "A little shaky on the details, but it doesn't matter," Chris said. Floyd freshened everyone's drink. "And we took a lovely long walk through San Francisco at night," Allison said. "I was there too," Monica said. "We had that really good Indian dinner, remember?" "Oh, that's right," Allison said. "Then you went to the lesbian party." "You're a lesbian?" Floyd said. "No. She sort of is," Allison said. "She brings girls home sometimes." "Interesting," Floyd said. "Could you see yourself in a long-term relationship with a woman, or is it just for pleasure?" Monica said, "The second thing. You're worse with the direct questions than Chris." "So, Floyd, what do you do for your job?" Allison said. "I scramble a little bit, no set thing. I teach some golf at a resort. You get the snowbirds coming down from Chicago and New York, and the money can be good. I've been a little lucky in real estate also." "Doing what?" Chris said. "Actually, the same type stuff I was doing for Chip. Distressed houses, flipping them. He screwed me, but then again he taught me the ropes." Monica said, "Who's Chip?" "Guy in Las Vegas, sort of a player," Floyd said. "Smart but sleazy. I told Chris he got murdered a few weeks ago." "My God," Allison said, "what happened?" Floyd said he'd moved out to L.A. and someone got into his office and killed him. At first I was kind of celebrating, because Chip owed me money and he didn't care. Then I started thinking he wasn't that bad of a guy. "But they think it's mob-related, right?" Chris said. "They thought so, but now they don't know. I hear bits and pieces from my buddy in Vegas. They're pretty sure someone used a baseball bat on him, though." "Well," Chris said, "anyone hungry?" "Whatever's your restaurant of choice, it's on me." "Nah, I got steaks and burgers ready to go on the grill," Floyd said. "That's how we do it here in Arizona in late March." The girls went for a walk and Floyd and Chris hovered around the backyard barbecue. Floyd said, "Still not clear on how you pulled it off, my big brother, but those are two righteously foxy women." "They have their moments," Chris said. "They can be impulsive, though, which you have to roll with." "Are you currently hitting on either one of them, or what?" "No." "You're sure?" "I'm sure. Almost happened once. Joyce got in the way. Never reignited itself after that." "Jesus, Joyce. What happened to her?" "She's around. We're on good terms." "Little more subtle with her," Floyd said, "but she was one hot number too." "Yeah, well, what can you do?" "I know it," Floyd said. "How'd she get in the way, though?" "Allison came over to my apartment. Joyce shows up unannounced to ask a question. Broke up the whole flow. I was already irritated because I had a chance to see someone else that night." "Did you follow through with the someone else?" Floyd said. "I did, a very warm lady. She said she's got an ex-husband messing with her mind, holding her back, physically." "You buy that?" "I go back and forth. I'm tempted to talk to the guy, though." "Now, why would you want to fool with something like that, man?" Floyd said. "I know there are other opportunities without the baggage. Just something that's been bothering me, that's all. Okay, whatever. At least coming down here, you can put all your concerns behind for a few days. 27. Line of baloney. Chris was drinking coffee in the kitchen. The patio's sliding door open, birds chirping, sunshine flooding in, when Monica appeared wearing an Idaho State University t-shirt that only covered half of her turquoise thong. You've got to be kidding, he said. Good morning to you too. What? To be laying that on someone this early, he said. That's unfair. Not taking his eyes off her as she opened a cabinet and reached for a cup. Chris, we're in Arizona, she said. It has to be 75 degrees out already. Fine. Not to change the subject, but you sleep okay? Like a baby. I had the window open. The air here... dry, right? He said. I'm going to take a run. You want to come? Okay, I'll try. I feel like I've been gaining weight on this road trip. I wouldn't worry about it, honestly, he said. Everything outside was cement. Even the high school, a few blocks away, had a fake grass football field with a fake dirt track surrounding it. Chris ran laps on the track so Monica could go at her own pace, but she didn't last long and ended up sitting in the bleachers. You have a fluid stride, she said when they were walking back. It must make jogging easier. Pain in the ass is what it is, he said. The best thing, find a sport. Then you don't have to know you're exercising. Chris's phone rang and it showed Meyerhofer. He stopped walking and took the call. So how's the butterbutt pretty boy? Meyerhofer said. Fair to middling, Chris said. Someone's looking for you. Says you're never home. It's nice to know you're still alive. Steve? What? Have you stopped doing your thing? I'll be in touch, Meyerhofer said. Chris called Brigitte. Everything still good, he said. Yes, of course it is, she said. Chris, it's not necessary for you to continue interrogating me. I don't think it's still good, he said. All right, Steve has admittedly been grouchy of late. He's experiencing a withdrawal of sorts. I can't hold that against him. He touch you at all? Scare you in any way? No, nothing like that. Taking a little too long to answer a simple question. Okay then, he said. He waved Monica away as he plugged one ear and dialed Ray. There was no answer. Damn it, he said. What time is it in California? I think 12:20, the same as here, she said. Now that it's daylight savings, Monica said. You seem upset. I got a friend I can't reach, Chris said. It's Saturday. He's probably getting dialysis as we speak. Some of that sounded bizarre, she said. Did someone scare someone and so forth? What's up with that? Hard to say. Hopefully it's just me putting my nose where it don't belong. Chris, you're on a holiday, okay? You have to eliminate these projections. Stay in the here and now. Let yourself have fun. She was standing close to him, concerned. He bent down, grabbed her behind the knees, and when he straightened up, she was upside down over his shoulder. Wait, what are you doing? Don't, she said, but she was laughing, and he kept her up there dangling and jostling around until they got to Floyd's house. I see what you mean about that weight gain, he said. I can only carry you 2 blocks. You're not funny, she said. Floyd and Allison were next to each other on the couch, Floyd flipping pages of a photo album. Hey, morning, Chrissy, Monica, he said. Remember the summer Mom and Dad dragged us to that lake in Wisconsin? Chris said, you guys bang each other already? No, Floyd said, we're hitting it off, but it's not like that. They did, Monica said. Long as everyone's having fun, Chris said. I'm going to look around Anthem this afternoon. You guys feel safe being left with my brother? I thought I'd take them over to Scottsdale, find a little action, Floyd said. Actually, why don't I go with Chris? Monica said. He'd been carrying the address for Kyle Lamb around in his wallet, since he pulled it off the computer at the Funston Library the same day he was questioned by Detective Cousins, which was 2 days after the incident with Chip Reggio. Traffic was light. They passed various planned communities on both sides of the freeway, extensions of North Phoenix. Think you could ever live in one of these? Chris asked Monica. I'm not sure. What about you? She said. Has an artificial feel, but there'd be redeeming aspects. All your needs within 5 minutes. Everything bright, spanking clean, no crime to worry about, a giant year-round pool in your complex. Probably I could, she said. Not now, it'd be a tad slow, but when I settle down to have kids. Hold on, you're leaning that direction? Oh, absolutely. I've wanted to be a mother since I can't remember. You're laughing. I'm not laughing at you. You could have fooled me is all. I'm happy that's your goal. Your brother is red hot, incidentally, she said. You think so? Totally. Look at Allison getting her hands on him right away. I love her, but what a single-minded little bitch. The way things have been playing out, Chris said, pretty good odds you'll get your chance. You'd be fun too, though, she said. Oh, he said. There were 2 similar developments that made up Anthem, it turned out. One a little fancier with a golf course and requiring you to deal with a guard booth. Luckily, Kyle lived in the more modest section you could drive right into, and when they got to the address, there he apparently was, a thin guy with a backwards baseball cap and a goatee, shooting baskets with his kids in the driveway. Chris said, something could be off, but there's a chance that's the person. What person again now? Monica said. The guy glanced toward the car and they kept going and turned the corner. Chris said, okay, don't tell Floyd or anyone else about this. But a woman I know in San Francisco, I'm trying to help her get on with her life. She says her ex-husband is essentially mind-fucking her. The man playing basketball back there, he doesn't look the type, frankly. I agree, but this stuff can surprise you. Hey, would you want to talk to him? Me? Yeah. How about tell him you're looking around, considering moving into the area. Pick his brain, see how he is. Well, I guess I could, she said, if you really need me to play detective. Just walk back there right now before he goes anywhere. Make sure you introduce yourself so he gives you his name too. My guy is Kyle. It took her 20 minutes. That was kind of a trip, she said. What'd you get? I got that those are his stepkids. He's lived here 8 years. The quality of life is great except for July and August, but it's a bear if you have to commute. And his name is Kyle. Dang, you are good, Chris said. And also, last thing? Yep, I'm having a drink with him at 6. Oh my God. He's actually really nice. I'm not believing this. What about his step-family obligations? He didn't mention that. What else should I ask him? Wow. Oh boy. Well, the main thing we're trying to determine, I guess, is he purposely sticking it to my friend, or is she feeding me a line of baloney? Okay, don't worry. I should be able to get you that. It might take a couple of drinks. Try to make it 7-Up or something on your end, Chris said. Chris, I can take care of myself. The place was called Jackson's Hole and Bistro. It was in a shopping center near Safeway, a short drive from Kyle's house. Chris said, what I'm wondering, what kind of guy cheats on his wife right in his own backyard? At least put some distance on the situation. He's not cheating on his wife. You know what I mean, Chris said. He's either a dumb shit or just as likely he wants to show off his new prize. They were on the far side of the parking lot and Monica got out. I'll be right here, Chris said. He watched her walk over there and disappear inside. Then he called Ray again. Seeley, you son of a bitch, Ray said. I actually kind of miss your ass. Ray, I have to run something by you. You drinking anything yet? No, but about to be. I just walked in. Had to sit in the chair dealing with the bullshit all afternoon. Okay, hold off on that for a minute then, Chris said. Brigida might be having a problem with her husband. Man, you already told me that. In fact, I seem to recall it was you initiated it. No, not that, Chris said. Now I'm worried he might not be treating her right. I talked to her at noontime. Nothing she said. I just had a bad feeling. Ray didn't say anything. Ray? Where you at right now? Ray said. I'm in Arizona. That's the whole problem, Chris said. Ray said, I got this then. Chris said, what do you mean you got this? But Ray was off the phone. It occurred to Chris he'd been spending too much time sitting in parking lots. Finally, near the 8:30, he spotted Monica in front of Jackson's hole, mingling with the doofus. Chris waited for the obligatory hug and peck on the cheek so he could thankfully get the hell out of there. But no, she follows Kyle to his car, gets in, and they drive away. He followed them as they jumped on the freeway toward Phoenix and got off 15 minutes later, turned into a Holiday Inn Express, and went inside. Chris sat there with the engine running, trying to digest this. He sent Monica a text and went home to Floyd's. You're back, his brother said. Sort of, Allison said. She was sitting on Floyd's lap in the kitchen, beverages in front of them. She's having dinner with someone, Chris said. I have to pick her up later. Yeah, right, Allison said, playing with Floyd's hair. Now you're getting to know Monica, Chris. She's not particularly complicated. Well, hey, how's everything going otherwise? Floyd said. You know, could be worse, Chris said. Took a look around Anthem. Nice to see all that red rock. People there seemed reasonably cheerful. That, or they're a bunch of zombies, Floyd said. A little bit too controlled up there for my taste. Could be. Plus, I got one or two issues that are dogging me. Floyd said, I already told you. You go away, check that shit at the door. That used to be easier, Chris said. You went somewhere, you wanted to address something at home, you needed to find a pay phone and come up with about $10 in change, so you said forget it and had a good time. Now you're held hostage by modern technology. So turn it off and lock it in the trunk, Floyd said. Don't quite have enough discipline to, Chris said. Speaking of which, I have to go outside and make a few calls. After that, I want to ask you something. He called Ray, got no answer, was hesitant to try Brigida, but he did, and she didn't pick up either, so he went back inside. There was no one in the kitchen, and there was music on now in Floyd's bedroom, some new guy trying to sound like Marvin Gaye. Chris went over to the counter and helped himself to what was left in the shaker, a sweet, citrusy vodka mix that wasn't bad. And when he turned around, he had an angle through the living room into the bedroom where the door was slightly open and Allison was riding Floyd. He watched for a few minutes, sipping his drink. Allison mostly had her hands clasped behind her head, her back slightly arched. She would occasionally bring them down and say something to Floyd. Chris went back outside and checked his messages. Nothing from Monica, and he phoned Joyce, but she wasn't there either, so he went over to the high school and walked around the track for an hour. When he came back, Floyd and Allison were showered and sitting on the couch watching a comedy special on HBO. Took you a long time, Floyd said. What was that you wanted to ask me? Whether you know of any strip clubs in the greater Phoenix area, Chris said. I thought I'd go to one. Hey, can I go too? Allison said. Floyd said, there's a couple that come to mind. Your best bet, consistency-wise, is Judy's Rendezvous. It's in Tempe, not too far from ASU. Babe, I'm serious. Can you take me? Allison said. I've never been to one of those. Jesus, babe already, Chris said. You wouldn't feel awkward? Floyd said. I'm with you and Chris, she said. Why would I?